28. 7. Most Malachites pass through Palestine to spend the winter in Africa. An increasing number winter in Israel. They build their nests in the forks of tall trees and store food in the nest before laying eggs. The red kite, a rare winter visitor, is a reddish-brown bird, barred with black, with a greyish-white head. Kitron kitron from a root meaning make sacrificial smoke. A city from which the Zebulunites failed to expel the Canaanite inhabitants. JG 1. 30. Although various sites have been suggested, none is certain. This ancient city in Zebulun may be the same as Katath. Jos 19. 15. Kittim Kittim. Kittim is listed as one of the 4 sons of Javan, although the name appears only in the plural form in all scriptural references. GE 10. 4. 1 ch 1. 7. The name thereafter is used to represent a people and region. Josephus Jewish Antiquities, I, 128-6, 1 refer to Kittim as Chethemos and associated it with Cyprus and with the name Chethim given by the Hebrews to all islands and to most maritime countries. The ancient Phoenicians referred to the people of Cyprus as Kitti. Modern authorities generally agree with such identification of Kittim with Cyprus. The city of Kish and City on this coast of Cyprus is best known as a Phoenician colony, and so some scholars have viewed the listing of Kittim among the descendants of Japheth as out of place. GE 10. 2, 4. 1 ch 1. 5, 7. However, the evidence shows that the Phoenicians were relative latecomers to Cyprus and their colony at Kish is considered to date from only about the 9th century BCE. Thus, after the New Encyclopaedia Britannica 1987, Volume 3, p. 332 identifies Kish as the principal Phoenician city in Cyprus, it adds. The earliest remains at Citium are those of an Aegean colony of the Mycenaean age c. 1400 to 1100 BC. See also Volume 16, p. 948. That Kittim may embrace other areas in addition to the island of Cyprus is indicated by Josephus' statement, quoted earlier, about the Hebrew usage of the term as embracing other Mediterranean islands and countries bordering the sea, Cyprus being but the nearest to Palestine of the Kittim lands. This seems to be borne out by the references to the islands or coastlands of Kittim at Ezekiel 27. 6 and Jeremiah 2. 10. Some commentators consider that Kittim is also used in this larger sense at Numbers 24. 24, where the prophet Balaam, who lived contemporaneously with Moses, foretold that ships from the coast of Kittim would afflict Assyria and Eber, but that the attacker would eventually perish. This view would allow for the attack perhaps to originate from the sea-coast region of Macedonia, from which country Alexander the Great advanced, conquering the land of Ashur-Assyria but Babylonia along with the Medo-Persian Empire. Others suggest that the attackers were Romans from the Mediterranean coastlands of Italy. The Latin Vulgate uses Italy in place of Kittim at Numbers 24. 24, and the Targum of Enkelos reads Romans. But the apocryphal book of 1 Maccabees 1. 1, JB uses Kittim to represent the land of Macedonia. In Isaiah's pronouncement against Tyre, Kittim, likely Cyprus, is the point at which the eastbound ships of Tarshish receive the news of Tyre's downfall, and the virgin daughter of Sidon is told by Jehovah to cross over to Kittim itself, in a vain effort to find refuge. Isla 23. 1, 11, 12. This is in harmony with the historical evidence for Phoenician colonies in Cyprus at the time of Isaiah's prophesying c. 778. A 732 BCE? An inscription of Sennacherib relates the flight of King Nulli of Sidon to the island of Idnana, Cyprus as the Reblakite. A bird not suitable for food, according to Textoi Acute Muritra Longo, Neil 179. Salt of the Assyrian attack. Ancient Near Eastern Texts, edited by J. Pritchard, 1974, pages 287. 288. Similarly, many from Tyre evidently sought haven in Cyprus during Nebuchadnezzar's 13-year siege of Tyre, in fulfillment of Isaiah's proclamation. Final mention of Kittim by that name comes in Daniel's prophecy of the rivalry between the king of the north and king of the south, where an attack by the king of the north is thwarted by the ships of Kittim. Da 11. 30. See Cyprus. Kneading trough. A shallow and generally portable bowl-shaped vessel, It was usually made of wood, but sometimes was earthenware or was made of bronze. In it flour and water were mixed and worked into dough. In preparing leavened bread, the mass was usually leavened by working in a piece of dough saved from a previous baking. The mass of dough was left to rise in the kneading trough before baking. G 18. 6. 1 Sir 28. 24. The usual method was to knead the dough with one's hands, though the Egyptians also used their feet at times, when kneading dough in a large trough. Ho 7. 4. The size of the kneading bowl, or trough, varied considerably. However, one earthenware type often used was a bowl approximately 25 centimeters 10 inches in diameter and about 8 centimeters 3 inches deep. Bread was an important part of the Hebrew diet and was baked regularly. Hence, the kneading trough was an essential item among the Israelites and other peoples of antiquity. The frogs that covered Egypt during the second blow brought upon it by Jehovah in Moses' day entered their homes and were even found in the kneading troughs. X 8. 3. The Israelites, later leaving Egypt hurriedly, carried their flour dough before it was leavened, with their kneading troughs wrapped up in their mantles upon their shoulder. X 12. 33, 34. Since the kneading trough was an important vessel in their home, having to do with the preparing of the daily bread, Jehovah's blessing upon it evidently signified an assured sufficiency of food in their home, while his curse upon it represented hunger. De 28. 1, 2, 5, 15, 17. Kneel. This joint in the leg is important for support of the body. Hence, wobbling or enfeebled knees portray weakness. And knocking knees, fear. Job 4. 4. PS 109. 24. Issa 35. 3. Dar 5. 6. Hob 12. 12. All except 300 of Gideon's 10,000 men bent down upon their knees to drink, apparently putting their faces down to the water. In this position they could not be alert, prepared in case of a surprise attack. They were more concerned with slaking their thirst than with the issue at hand. On the other hand, the 300 remained on their feet, picking up the water and lapping it out of their hands, alert, watchful, ready. The 9,700's negligent ones were therefore dismissed. JG 7. 3, 5-8. Figuratively, a child said to be born upon the knees of a person other than the mother, and thus enjoying that one's favor and care, was acknowledged as that person's child, or descendant, just as Bilhah's child was counted as Rachel's. GE 30. 3-6. Compare GE 50. 23. Jehovah promised restoration for his people and likened them to children of Zion, or Jerusalem, who would be fondled upon the knees, that is, well cared for, brought back into a favored state. Issa 66. 12, 13. Kneeling. The Hebrew word for kneel barak possibly has the same root as the one for blessing, which may indicate that at least at times blessings were conferred upon persons while they knelt. While imploring favor, a person might kneel as an act of respect or to implore favor, as when a chief of 50 representing King Ahaziah knelt before Elijah to plead for his life and that of the men accompanying him. 2 Kai 1. 13, 14. It was on bended knee that a leper entreated Jesus to make him clean. Mr. 1. 40-42. Also 10. 17-22. During prayer. True worshippers often knelt when praying to God, this posture being a suitable indication of their humility. As 9. 5. O textoi acute muritra longo, knife 180 above every other name, so that in the name of Jesus every knee should bend of those in heaven and those on earth and those under the ground. All who gain life must bend their knees in worship to Jehovah in the name of Jesus Christ and acknowledge him as Lord to God's glory. This includes those under the ground, evidently showing that those resurrected from the grave also come under this requirement. PHP 2. 9-11. Joe 5. 28, 29. F1. 9, 10. Primarily, recognition of Jehovah's supremacy and sovereignty is required of those desiring divine favor. Jehovah has declared, "By my own self I have sworn." that to me every knee will bend down. Isra 45. 23. Row 14. 10-12 Appropriately, therefore, the psalmist fervently urged fellow Israelites. O come in, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before Jehovah our Maker. PS 95. 6. See attitudes and gestures. Knife. A singly or double-edged cutting implement. Knives used in biblical lands in times past were made of stone, particularly of flint, copper, bronze, or iron. The Hebrew term ma'amidl.akleth, which literally refers to an instrument for eating, is also applied to large knives such as those employed in cutting up the carcasses of sacrificial animals. A slaughtering knife heb. Ma'amidl.akleth was the instrument faithful Abraham took in hand when about to sacrifice Isaac. Ge 22. 6, 10, and the same type was used by a certain Levite to cut the body of his dead concubine into 12 pieces. JG 19. 29 Also, Proverbs 30. 14 speaks of a generation whose teeth are swords and whose jawbones are slaughtering knives, thus employing the same Hebrew term as a figure of rapaciousness. Flint knives were made by Joshua for use in circumcising the sons of Israel at Gibeath-Ariloth. Jos 5. 2-4 Part of the Hebrew term designating these knives is cherev, generally rendered sword. Compare Jos 5. 2, ftn. The common Canaanite flint knife was about 15 centimeters 6 inches in length and had a raised center ridge and a double edge. Scribes and secretaries of ancient times used the type of knife to sharpen their reed pens and to make erasures. Jeremiah 36. 23 tells of the use of a secretary's knife to tear apart a roll of a book prepared by Jeremiah at Jehovah's direction. Many ancient knives of copper have a straight blade from 15 to 25 centimeters 6 to 10 inches in length. Some with curved tips have also been discovered. Handles were often one piece with the blade. Other handles were made of wood and were fastened to the blade. Proverbs 23. 1, 2 makes figurative reference to a knife, recommending the putting of a knife to one's throat when eating with a king, evidently emphasizing the need to restrain one's appetite in such a circumstance. Knob. An ornamental part of the golden lampstand used in the tabernacle. Designated by the Hebrew word kaf middle.tor, or kaf middle.tor, evidently referring to a round protrusion. X 25. 31-36. 37. 17-22 These knobs alternated with the ornamental blossoms on the main stem and on each of the 6 branches of the lampstand. Some of the knobs seem to have formed a boss, or projecting support, for these branches. They are discernible on the lampstand as depicted in the relief on the Arch of Titus in Rome, where Roman soldiers are shown carrying spoils from the temple in Jerusalem, destroyed in 70 CE. Knowledge. Essentially, knowledge means familiarity with facts acquired by personal experience, observation, or study. The Bible strongly urges the seeking for and treasuring of right knowledge, recommending it rather than gold. P 8. 10. 20. 15 Jesus stressed the importance of truly knowing him and his Father, and knowledge is repeatedly emphasized in the books of the Christian Greek scriptures. Job 17. 3. PHP 1. 9. 2P 3. 18. Source of knowledge. Jehovah is actually the basic source of knowledge. Life, of course, is from him on. Life is essential for one's having any knowledge. PS 36. 9. Ago textoi acute miritra longo. Knowledge 181 Faith in Jesus Christ as God's Son. He cannot grasp the real meaning of the scriptures and see how God's purposes are working out in harmony with what he has foretold. One is helped to appreciate more fully the meaning and importance of knowledge by examining the Hebrew and Greek words often translated knowledge, as well as by noting the relationship between knowledge and wisdom, understanding, thinking ability, and discernment. Meaning of term. In the Hebrew scriptures, a number of words nouns that can be translated knowledge are related to the basic verb middle dota, signifying know by being told, know by observing, know by personal acquaintance or experience, or be experienced, skillful. The exact shade of meaning, and often the way each word should be translated, must be determined by the context. For instance, God said that he knew Abraham and so was sure that that man of faith would command his offspring correctly. Jehovah was not saying simply that he was aware that Abraham existed but, rather, that he had become well acquainted with Abraham, for he had observed Abraham's obedience and interest in true worship over many years. GE 18. 19, NW, La. GE 22. 12. Compare Jehovah early use of the name and its meaning. As with the verb to know, the principal Hebrew word rendered knowledge darath carries the basic idea of knowing facts or having information, but at times it includes more than that. For example, Hosea 4. 1:6 says that at a certain time there was no knowledge of God in Israel. That does not mean that the people were not aware that Jehovah was God and that he had delivered and led the Israelites in the past. 8:2 But by their course of murdering, stealing, and committing adultery, they showed that they rejected real knowledge, because they were not acting in harmony with it. Ho 4:2 Middle sometimes denotes sexual intercourse, as at Genesis 4:17, where some translations render it literally New KJ. RS. Ro, whereas others suitably say that Cain had intercourse with his wife. At Mo. In W the Greek verb nosko is used similarly at Matthew 1:25 and Luke 1:34. After Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit GE 2:17. 3. 5, 6, Jehovah said to his associate in creative work Joe 1:3. Here the man has become like one of us in knowing good and bad. GE 3:22. This apparently did not mean merely having knowledge of what was good and what was bad for them, for the first man and woman had such knowledge by reason of God's commands to them. Furthermore, God's words at Genesis 3:22 could not pertain to their now knowing what was bad by experience, for Jehovah said that they had become like him and he has not learned what is bad by doing it. PS 92:14-15. Evidently, Adam and Eve got to know what was good and what was bad in the special sense of now judging for themselves what was good and what was bad. They were idolatrously placing their judgment above God's, disobediently becoming a law to themselves, as it were, instead of obeying Jehovah, who has both the right and the wisdom necessary to determine good and bad. So their independent knowledge, or standard, of good and bad was not like that of Jehovah. Rather, it was one that led them to misery. 10:23. In the Christian Greek scriptures there are two words commonly translated knowledge, gnosis and sis. Both are related to the verb no-sko, which means know, understand, perceive. The way this verb is used in the Bible, though, shows that it can indicate a favorable relationship between the person and one he knows. 1 Co 8. 3. 2 19 Knowledge gnosis is put in a very favorable light in the Christian Greek scriptures. However, not all that men may call knowledge is to be sought, because philosophies and views exist that are falsely called knowledge. 1 T6. 20 The recommended knowledge is about God and his purposes. O textoi acute miritra longo, knowledge 182 putting on the new personality and in gaining peace. Col 3. 10. 2 P 1. 2. Related attributes. Frequently in the Bible, knowledge is linked with other attributes such as wisdom, understanding, discernment, and thinking ability. PR 2. 1-6, 10, 11 Grasping the basic differences between these greatly illuminates many texts. It is to be acknowledged, though, that the original words involved cannot be said to match invariably certain English words. The setting and the use of a word affect the sense. Nonetheless, certain interesting differences emerge when one notes the Bible's references to knowledge, wisdom, understanding, discernment, and thinking ability. Wisdom. Wisdom is the ability to put knowledge to work, or to use it, the intelligent application of learning. A person might have considerable knowledge, but not know how to use it because of lacking wisdom. Jesus linked wisdom with accomplishment in saying, "Wisdom is proved righteous by its works." Mount 11:19 Solomon asked for and received from God not just knowledge but also wisdom. 2 Ch 1:10 1 Chi 4. 29-34 In the case of two women who claimed the same child, Solomon had knowledge of a mother's devotion to her child. He displayed wisdom by using his knowledge to settle the dispute. 1 Chi 3. 16-28 Wisdom is the prime thing, for without it knowledge is of little value. PR 4. 7. 15. 2 Jehovah abounds in and provides both knowledge and wisdom. Row 11. 33. Ches 1. 5. Understanding. Understanding is the ability to see how the parts or aspects of something relate to one another, to see the entire matter and not just isolated facts. The Hebrew root verb bin has the basic meaning separate or distinguish, and it is often rendered understand or discern. It is similar with the Greek c middle. Miles thus at Acts 28. 26 quoting Isa 6. 9, 10 It could be said that the Jews heard but did not understand, or did not put together. They did not grasp how the points or thoughts fitted together to mean something to them. Proverbs 9. 10 In saying that knowledge of the Most Holy One is what understanding is, shows that true understanding of anything involves appreciation of its relation to God and His purposes. Because a person with understanding is able to connect new information to things he already knows, it can be said that to the understanding one knowledge is an easy thing. PR 14. 6 Knowledge and understanding are allied, and both are to be sought. PR 2. 5. 18. 15. Discernment. A Hebrew word frequently rendered discernment to view na is related to the word by na, translated understanding. Both appear at Proverbs 2. 3, which the translation by the Jewish Publication Society renders. If thou call for understanding, and lift up thy voice for discernment. As with understanding, discernment involves seeing or recognizing things, but it emphasizes distinguishing the parts, weighing or evaluating one in the light of the others. A person who unites knowledge and discernment controls what he says and is cool of spirit. PR 17. 27 The one opposing Jehovah displays lack of discernment. PR 21. 30 Through his Son, God gives discernment, full understanding or insight. 2T2. 1, 7, NW, NE. Thinking ability. Knowledge is also related to what is sometimes translated thinking ability Heb. Mezim middle.ma. The Hebrew word can be used in a bad sense evil ideas, schemes, devices or a favorable one shrewdness, sagacity. PS 10. 2. PR 1. For thus the mind and thoughts can be directed to an admirable, upright end, or just the opposite. By paying close attention to the way Jehovah does things and by inclining one's ears to all the various aspects of his will and purposes, a person safeguards his own thinking ability, directing it into right channels. PR 5. 1, 2 Properly exercised thinking ability, harmonious with godly wisdom and knowledge, will guard a person against being ensnared by immoral enticements. PR 2. 10-12. O textoi acute miritra longo, Kalea 183 Kurkaewa. A people or region mentioned with Pecode and Shora at Ezekiel 23. 23 and foretold by Jehovah to supply part of the enemy forces that would assault unfaithful Jerusalem and Judah. Kol was probably located near Babylonia and has been generally linked with the Kutu, a people who resided near the Tigris on the steppes between the Upper Adim and Yala rivers. The Kutu are frequently coupled with the Sutta, perhaps the Shora.